There are a number of tools you can use for making selections in Photoshop. By far the most valuable and the most accurate, in my opinion, is the pen tool. The pen tool is located about halfway down in your tools panel, and if you click on the tool, you're going to see that we have the pen tool, the Freeform pen tool, the Curvature pen tool, add anchor point, delete anchor point, and convert anchor point. The pen tool works by creating paths. The paths are made up of anchor points. Of these three, the most useful is the pen tool itself. When you are in the pen tool, you need to make a couple of choices up here in the options panel. One thing is if you're creating a path that you're going to use for making a selection, make sure path is selected up here and not shape. If you choose shape, you're going to create a new vector-based shape layer. We want to work with paths right now. Paths are independent of the layers panel, and they work in conjunction with the paths panel instead. So make sure path is selected. Also, auto add and delete is selected. I'm going to select my paths panel and just bring it right on out here. And there are two types of anchor points that we can create. One is a curved point, and you make that by clicking and dragging. And when you click and drag, you're going to get these handles. These are called direction lines, often referred to as handles. These will control what the curve is going to look like. So if I come down here now and make another one, you see we have this curve established. If I hold down the Command key, you can get the direct select arrow, and that will let you modify either the direction handles or the anchor point. And notice that the path itself has been recorded over here in the Paths panel. Also notice in the Paths panel it says Work Path. Whenever it says Work Path, that is volatile. And if I were to deselect the path and then start drawing again, my previous path has been deleted. So if you want to save a path, click on the path, click on the name Work Path. That'll bring up the Save Path options here, and you could name the path or just go with the default of path 1, 2, 3, and so forth. Now, if I deselect and start drawing again, I'll create a new work path, but my previous path will be saved. And when I save my document, this path will be permanently saved with that document. I'm going to delete both of these for right now. All right, to help us understand how paths work, I'd like you to turn on the grid. So I'm going to go to View, Show, Grid. All right, I'd like you to click somewhere on the intersection of the grid and click and drag out. If you hold the Shift key, that will constrain your direction lines. Let's go down 3 rows and drag out 2 columns, and then just come back and just click on your first point. Don't drag. And that will create a circle. I'll just name this circle. Now when you click and drag, that creates what's either called a curve or a smooth anchor point. This is called a Bezier curve. If you click and do not drag, you're going to get a corner point, no curve. So this will not give you any curve at all. If you hold down the Option key or the Alt key on a PC and you move over one of the anchor points, you'll get this upside down V tool. That is the Convert Point tool. And if you click and drag, you can turn an anchor point into a curved anchor point, or vice versa. Now you can also automatically add, because we have this checked up here, auto add, delete, you can just move over a segment that has no anchor point, and you can click and then add a new anchor point. This, by default, in my case, it added a curve anchor point. I could convert that by holding the Option key and just clicking on it, and now it is a angle or corner anchor point. If I want to delete an anchor point, I can just roll over an existing anchor point. I'll get the minus sign, that is the Delete Anchor Point tool, and then you can delete points. Okay, now using the pen tool, we're going to create something a little bit fancier. We're going to create a curve that goes out this way, and then this way, and then this way. So to do that, I've got the pen tool selected. I'm going to click at one of these intersections, drag out 2 columns, hold the Shift key to constrain the direction lines, come down 2 rows, click and drag the opposite direction, 2 rows, again the opposite direction, 2 rows in the opposite direction. Something like that. You can modify these by holding down the Command key, clicking on the end point of the direction line. You could click on the anchor points. And so forth. Okay, I'm going to delete this one. Now let's try something else. This would go like this, and then this, and then this. This gets a little bit more tricky. I'll show you why. If we hold down the Shift key, I drag out, and then drag the opposite direction. Now I want to go this way. So if I come down 2, you'd think I would go this way, but I end up with this big loop here. That's because this direction handle here is setting up this curve, and it wants to make a curve that goes this way. So in order to make it go this way without getting the strange loop, we have to break the connection between the right and left side of the direction lines. Let me try it again here. I'll click and drag out. Click and drag out. Now I'm going to hold down the Option key. When I hold down the Option key, that lets me separate this direction handle from this one, and I can pull it around over on top of the other one. That's going to make the curve go this way. So I'll drag it out. Option click, bring it over on top, drag it down. Option click, drag it down. Now there's going to be many situations when you are creating a path around a photograph, a car or something, for example, where you need to abruptly change directions and you don't want that weird loop. That's when you're going to use the Option key to separate the direction lines and allow you to pull one direction handle over on top of the other, or simply to pull it in. You could just simply hold the Option key and just pull it in without bringing it over, and that will allow me to change direction. Okay, let me demonstrate what I mean there. I'm going to click and drag out, and now Option click, and I'm just pulling it in. I'm not going to pull it over on top of the other one, but this will allow me to abruptly change direction. I can go anywhere I want without getting a strange loop. So that's a very important feature to remember. Now let's try combining the curved anchor points and the corner points. So I'm going to click and drag. Then I'll just come down here to this intersection and just click, not drag. So that gives me a corner. Click, 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 click. So these are all corner, and then this one is a curve anchor point. Now to change a path into a selection, the path has to be a closed path. So you can't make a selection out of an open path. So I'm just going to arbitrarily create a path here. Over here, I'm just doing, pull that one in, up, and then make it like that. Okay, so I've got this strange shape. It doesn't matter what kind of shape you've got, it just has to be closed. And then to make it into a selection, the simplest way I find is simply to command click on the thumbnail. That turns it into the marching ants, into a selection. You could also click this third button down here. That does the same thing. Be careful about these two. This one will fill it. So that one was destructive in that it filled the selection on my background layer, which I did not want. I could also click this one, which will stroke the path. Again, it's ended up on my background layer. We could create a new layer and do the stroke fill on that new layer if you wish. Okay, I'd like to talk about how you'd create a symmetrical closed path. I'd like you to open up heart.png, then select your pen tool, P. Now we need to put a guide in here in the middle so that we know exactly where the middle of our shape is. So if your rulers are not showing, press Command R to show your rulers, and then drag from the left ruler out, and let's put a guide right in the middle. Then with the pen tool, click on that guide, and you're probably going to have to use a couple of points. Now when you're drawing smooth edges, smooth shapes, you want to use as few points as possible. We're going to have to create a point wherever the curve starts to change. So right in here it starts to change. So I'll have to put one there, and then one down here. And then I'll use my press Command and get your direct select arrow and finesse this. So I'll pull that one in and down a little bit, pull this one in. So by modifying these direction lines, you fine-tune your path. So that looks pretty good. All right, then I'll switch to my black arrow, my path selection arrow. Select the path, hold down the Option key, and I'll just slide it over to the left, holding the Shift keys, and then I will Command T. That's our transform, free transform. Right-click, flip horizontal. And I'm going to move the whole thing over and zoom in here. And I can use my keypad to nudge it over. So I'm going to get over very close to the other one and then hit return or the check mark to perform the transformation. Let me zoom in a little closer here. With my pen tool selected, I'm going to select the final point, the end point on the path on the right. Option click to pull in that direction handle, hold the Option key down and click on the end point on the left. Now I can hold down the Command key to get my direct select arrow, deselect the path for a moment, then reselect and move these on top of one another. Sometimes your guide may be in the way, so you might temporarily have to move it out of the way so that you can actually access your points. Command 0, spacebar, I'm going to zoom in on the top points. And I have to do the same thing. Now this is where I'm having an issue with this. I'm going to move that out of the way, hold down the Command key, pull this one up out of the way, click on it to make sure it's active, hold down the Option key and click on this one. Then I can deselect, grab this one, pull it back over on top of the other one. And I'll zoom out. I'll make a new layer and fill this. Command semicolon will hide your guides. And there we go. I have a perfectly symmetrical heart. Okay, now let's put the pen to practical use. I'm going to use the pen to create a path around this alarm clock and then use the path to create a selection, and I'll use the selection to add a layer mask. So please open up clock.jpg, and the first thing I'm going to do is add an adjustment layer. This area down here is a little bit dark, so I'd like to see a little bit more detail in here so that I can make my path very accurate. So I'll add a levels adjustment layer, and I'll just lighten the whole thing up, the middle values especially. That's pretty good. So now I can see all the detail here. Okay, so now I'm going to zoom in very close, and I guess I will just start here with this foot, select the pen tool, make sure I'm in path, auto add and delete, and I'm going to click. Now this has a lot of different changing angles and so forth, so it is a good one to use. Now right here, when I do this one, I'm not going to drag because I'm going to immediately change direction. I don't want to have a loop here. So by not dragging, I just create a corner point. Again, I'm going to zoom in a little bit more here so I can try to be more accurate. Pull this out, make sure that one's active. A lot of times you have to reactivate the last anchor point. Pull this up a little higher. So one of the great things about working with paths is that you could do the whole thing fairly rough and then go back and fine-tune it if you wish. Or you can fine-tune it as you're going along and make it very accurate. Like right now, I hold down the Option key. I'm going to move this over a little bit. Now here's where I need to change direction. Hold down the Option key and just pull that one in. Just click on it and pull it in. This, I'm getting a little bit of a loop here I don't want, so I have to pull this in, straighten it out, And maybe I'll hit that with the Option key again, pull that one in, and then around here. Now, whenever you have a smooth surface, you want to use as few points as possible, because wherever there's a point, there's a possibility you're going to get a little bump. So, again, this one I just have as a corner point. I didn't drag it, and now I'm going to start out here. The tendency for people who are new with this tool is to put a lot of little points in, because it makes them feel like they have more control. But really, I would come up like halfway here and click and drag, and then use my Command key to pull this handle out and to make it fit the contour of the clock. Hold the space bar and move down. I might try this one all the way up here, and then I will use this direction handle. See how well I can do it. I might have to adjust this one as well. One of the tricky things is when you make an adjustment with one adjustment handle, it can modify the other one and then mess up what you already did. So you do need to be a little careful about that. Now here again, I'm going to change direction. So Option, and then click here and around here. I'm going to do an Option on this one and get rid of that handle so I can change here without getting a big loop. I'll go there, and then maybe one up here. Hold down the Command key. Okay, and then come around this little item. Now these I'm just clicking and releasing. I'm not dragging. Here I have to drag to get around the top of this bolt or nut. Pull that in a little bit. And I'll come around here. Again, try to do as few as you can across the top here where you've got the smooth surface. And Command key and fine tune it. Space bar. Make sure this one's active by clicking it again. Come on down here. Adjust that one a little bit. Here, I don't think I need to change direction. I can just pull it out, straighten this one up a little bit. So these handles should pretty much parallel the edge of your object. I'm probably going to fast forward here. Okay, now this area here, we also have to knock out. So we can still do that on the same path. This would be called a compound shape. And so I can just go ahead and continue to put my path on the inside. Create a path on the inside here. I need to pull that one in a little bit. Come on down here. This one's going to be pretty long, so I'm going to Option click on this one. Command key, maybe adjust this a little bit. Click this but last one again to make sure it's active. Come on around here, down here. Maybe I'll pull this one in. You see what I did? I was thinking that this was my anchor point. This is actually the end of the direction line. So this is the direction line point. As I'll Option click to pull in that handle, and then Option key at the end. Now what you can do is Command click on the thumbnail. That loads this as a selection. We can get rid of the adjustment layer. And I want to put a layer mask on this. I don't want to just delete the background, and I don't want to drag this with a selection already made or with an active path and drag it into another image. If I'm compositing this against another background, I want to make sure that no path is selected, although I think I will name this, I can just name it Path 1 just so it gets saved with my document. And then I need to rename my initial background layer so that I can add a mask. Now if you have a selection made, I want to make sure that the path is no longer selected. If I have a path still selected, chances are I'm going to get a vector mask. I don't want a vector mask, so I want to make sure that the path is off, and I just have the marching ants, and then I can add the mask. So if the default is when you have a selection made, you add a mask, then the selection is revealed, and the area outside the selection is hidden. You can hold down the Shift key to turn off the mask, and yes, your background is still all there and fine. Turn it back on, and you're good to go. Let's take a quick look at the Freeform pen tool and the Curvature pen tool. The Freeform pen tool works a lot like the lasso tool. You can just click and draw, freehand. When you reach the starting point and release, it creates a closed path which is made up of individual anchor points. The path selection tool, if I deselect my path for a moment and then reselect it, the path selection tool will select all of the points on the path and allow you to move the path around. If you choose the white arrow or the direct selection tool and click on the path, notice the anchor points are white or clear, and if you click on one of them, you can modify that point alone. By default, when you are in any of the pen tools, and you hold down the Command key on the Mac or Control on the PC, and then you click, you're going to get the Direct Selection tool, which allows you then to modify the points. Now with the Curvature tool, you have to have at least 3 points before you see a result. And what this tool does is it automatically creates a curved path. It will always create a curved path. And that can be very, very useful. Now with this tool, as with each of the other pen tools, if you roll over a selection of a path that does not currently have a point, you will get the Add Anchor Point tool. You see the little plus sign. You can click there, and if I hold down the Command key, see how we can move this around.